The number one guy on Pete's list, who's the number one guy on everybody's list if they're doing this sort of list, the most valuable non-QBs in college football, I would argue this is the most valuable player in college football. I'm glad we get to talk about him now as a player, because I'm worried that this time next year, the only thing we're going to talk about with Jeremiah Smith is why does he have to play college football? It'll be the Jadeveon Clowney junior year discourse times a billion. So now we get to enjoy Jeremiah Smith as a player, fully formed, coming off a national title. Pete, you can start. Why is he so important, and what does he do that nobody else can do?
I mean, for starters, he's probably the best player in college football going into the season, I would argue. And then on top of that, too, I mean, it just people don't move like him in college football. Like, it's, there's Jeremiah Smith and then there's everyone else. And that's not to, I think enough people have said nice things about Jeremiah Smith. But the reality of the situation is that he could probably go be a top 5 pick in the NFL draft, if not number 1 overall this spring. And he obviously can't. And I think, like you said, that's going to be a huge talking point in the next 18 months. But the fact that that's actually a thing that he could go do just makes him, he's easily the top non-quarterback in college football.
I had a buddy in town this weekend, the person that I met my wife through. And we were laying on the couch and something came up on my phone.
Together?
Yeah, well, it's a really big couch, Andy.
It's a big couch. That's true. I guess I've laid on it with you.
We were both on the same blanket, and there was still 5 yards between us. We weren't sharing a blanket and cuddling. Although, why can't bros
Not
just?
There's anything wrong with that.
Non-sexual.
Listen, I
don't know. But anyway, Jeremiah Smith came up on the TV or on my phone or something, and I said, "This is going to be the greatest receiver that ever lived in 10 years." And he got super mad, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm sure we can just say that about a guy who's played college football 1 year. We're just gonna, put it out there and say he's be better than Randy Moss, right?" And it's I get the pushback on it, but that's where I am in my Jeremiah Smith evaluation. I expect, unless he's a pro football Hall of Famer, something went wrong. And I don't know if you guys think that's insane, but I feel like it was very easy to spot this coming. A year ago, we spoke about it on the show about how he's already one of the better players in college football a little bit earlier than everyone else. My expectation for him is that not only is he going to, outside of injury or something bad happening, be great in college. I think he's going to be a generational receiver in the NFL too, and a Hall of Famer. That's who that person is to me.
Pete, you covered this more thoroughly than anybody else. What did Ohio State have to do to keep Jeremiah Smith this year? Because I'm sure everybody said, what the hell? Let's at least try.
Yeah, I mean, so you go back, I think we reported in January or late January, early February after that national title game that he had a deal in the $4.5 million range to go in the portal. I had someone else tell me this spring that they were told they had to pay $6 million to get him in the portal. The point is that Jeremiah Smith's going to be a top 3 paid player in college football this season. We'll have to see how some of the numbers shake out with some quarterbacks when it comes to, incentives or checking things off a list or things like that in terms of winning awards. But, Jeremiah Smith's going to be a top 3 paid player in college football. And, I agree with Ari here. I think that, what he did his freshman year was, nothing short of insane. I don't really know what we should expect the standard to be this year, just because what he did as a freshman is something that not a lot of wide receivers do in general in their, college career. So I guess that the bar is to at least do what he did last year. And then, but yeah, he will be a top 3 paid player in college football this year.
Well, and
Andy,
so we
Andy, I want to go down the chain
for
a second. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but this is important. I think it's how many players in college football in general, quarterbacks included, do you pay more or want more than Jeremiah Smith? And Pete, you cover this stuff. Will we ever get to a point where a player will be at a place like Bama or Georgia or Ohio State or Clemson or USC or any of the big time brands who will be very successful and have a season like Jeremiah Smith have and then leave for more money? Are we around the corner? Because I always feel like the Jordan Addison thing is the number one most shocking or most, I don't know, shocking, but like most ground shaking when it comes to the future of college football? Like, are we going to see star players that made programs leave because they're not getting, like, or is that like
I don't think we're far off from that. And I don't want to, like, I'm not trying to over hypothesize here, but I think that, like, Jeremiah Smith's going to sign another deal to go back to Ohio State for a third year. Like, there's going to have to be that negotiation process. There's going to be more portal windows for Colin Simmons. Like, it's not outside the realm of possibility that in like 6 months we're having conversations about some of the top players moving around. And, I think time will tell which guys do it and stuff. I always think of that Jordan Addison one too, Ari. Like, that one, that was a spring portal transfer that really shocked a lot of people. Do we get back to something like that? I don't know.
And the reason why that one was so important, though, is because it shocked the paradigm of middle tier program losing to elite program. The thing that I think will be really interesting is if a player who becomes a star at a big time program, which is the epitome of where you want to be for NFL draft stuff. Like, Jeremiah Smith is cannot improve his placement in the sport as a draft pick, but also doesn't matter because he's Jeremiah Smith. But like, we always talk about NIL is not as big of money as the NFL money. Like, will we see players at big time programs who are surefire first round draft picks leave their spot? Like, I think that would be an absolutely crucial shift in the paradigm of roster building if that were to happen.
No, 100. I mean, I like to look at it this way. So, like, Quinn Ewers signed a 4-year, $4.3 million contract with the Dolphins, right? Picked in the 7th round. He got like $130,000 signing bonus and everything. I mean, there was more money on the table for him to go in the portal, and he chose the NFL because he just wanted the NFL. He was kind of done with his college career after all those transfers. But I think that we're not far off from more and more players like a Quinn Ewers to come back to college. I mean, we saw it with Carson Beck. I don't know if we're ever going to get to like a first round pick though, like passing on the NFL just because of how.
But what about a first-round pick changing his college?
But I think this is going to be like the NFL. Like,
Downs.
you never let a good quarterback hit free agency. You never let, like, the Cowboys are probably going to sign Micah Parsons. They'll just reset the market. Like, eventually they'll cave. Yeah. But you just don't let players like that hit free agency. And I think it's the same thing. Like, there's probably no dollar amount. And obviously everybody has a high end of their dollars, but Ohio State has to keep Jeremiah Smith. Yeah. Can't not keep him.
Yeah. I mean, Alabama did lose Caleb Downs, and he might be a top 5 pick this spring. So there are some examples.
But that was Saban had just retired.
Yeah, that wasn't financial only, was it? Like, I think,
no.
It will be interesting. Like, if you look at the list that you have, and it's like if Colin Simmons is suiting up for South Carolina next year, like that type of thing. You know what I mean? Where a person who's
like
already
at short moves.
Yeah, but like that, even then, I'm talking about, like, I can understand, and I don't know if this is offensive to some people, but it's a show and I offend people, so have at it. Like, if you leave from Texas to South Carolina, that would be unprecedented. If you leave from South Carolina to Texas, that would be a Jordan Addison like move that's already happened. Like, I'm talking about like a teams that are
man bites dog versus dog bites man.
Yeah, teams that have a incredibly valuable proven asset that are also competing for a national championship, not paying enough to keep their best players.
Yeah.
So let's talk Jeremiah Smith, and because you mentioned Randy Moss in the comparisons. So if I were to physically compare Jeremiah Smith to Randy Moss, we didn't get the full view of Randy Moss in college because the rules were different. He got kicked out at Florida State. Notre Dame couldn't sign him. He ends up at Marshall. But Jeremiah Smith, same height, ranginess, and speed, but bigger. Yeah. If you were comparing the physical comparison, I would do is Larry Fitzgerald probably, but also probably a little more athletic, which is saying something. And it's crazy to me because I was going back through this. Larry Fitzgerald redshirted his freshman year at Pitt, so we only got 2 years of Larry Fitzgerald in college, and year one was pretty good. He had 1,000 yards receiving, like 65 catches. And then he had like 1,700 yards receiving his junior year or his redshirt sophomore year. We've already seen Jeremiah Smith on a team with another first-round receiver in Emeka Egbuka go for 1,300 yards. And that's in a year where people were yelling at Ohio State and Chip Kelly when he's the OC. Like, why are you not throwing it to this guy more?
Yeah. It's, the other interesting conversation I feel like we're going to be having about Jeremiah Smith come, August 30th, the first week of September. Like, if things don't go great against Texas for Ohio State and there's a legit quarterback question mark still going into September, the conversation about, like, we have the best wide receiver in college football and we can't get him the football, like, that is just going to be, you guys are going to spend a lot of time talking about that if things don't go a certain way on August 30th, I think.
Ari, you tell me, if you're Ryan Day, at some point have you gone to Jeremiah Smith and be like, which QB do you want?
Yeah. Things would have to go really bad if they can't figure out a way to get him the ball.
Yeah, but he's also, he's going to be double teamed. We saw that in the semifinal game, right? It's not, Jeremiah Smith is Jeremiah Smith. He's going to be able to, get past the double team here and there. But at the same time, I think there's going to be a ton of pressure on
somebody set a line
snaps to get him the ball.
If somebody set a line on, like, Jeremiah Smith's, like, production, and just the line was his last year's stats, would you take the over or under this year?
Over.
You would?
Yeah, because Emeka Egbuka, like, I don't think Carnell Tate is going to be as productive as Emeka Egbuka. Emeka Egbuka was a 1,000-yard receiver too. I think Jeremiah is going to have to do a little more. But that said, Carnell Tate and Brandon Inniss are good enough to take the heat off Jeremiah Smith. Plus, the run game is going to be good.
Yeah, and aren't people, like, also freaking out about how good Mylan Graham is, Pete?
Yes.
They have. I don't know if I buy that they don't have a Mecca argument. Like, they'll be fine.
Maybe they do. You're right. Maybe they do have another first rounder because they, like, what are we talking about? This is the Brian Hartline era of Ohio State receivers. They've always got multiple first rounders on the roster. Yeah, it's just a matter of which years they're first rounders in.
That's interesting about a Mecca to me, and Pete, you watch Ohio State a lot too, having lived in Columbus and stuff. Is that Emeka Egbuka? I think is the highest. Is he holds the record for most receiving yards in Ohio State history, right?
I believe so. Yes.
And he is certainly productive and consistent. You hear Baker Mayfield in Tampa talking about how awesome he is. He's a really, really good player. Emeka Egbuka went through his entire career at Ohio State and never had, in my opinion, sensational moments week over week that, like, receivers like Ted Ginn Jr. had and Santonio Holmes and people that went through that program. He was the model of consistency, but he wasn't sensational in the way that Jeremiah Smith is. And I remember
more like Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson games.
Yeah, Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave highlights. Yeah. Like, Emeka Egbuka's career did not mirror those careers. And I think Ohio State will have no issue finding somebody else to be consistent. My question is if defenses sell out every week to make sure they don't get torched by Jeremiah. Maybe they don't have the athletes to do it, but the main emphasis and focus of every game that Ohio State plays, especially considering the fact they don't have their two running backs they had last year. Like, who do you sell out for if you're facing Ohio State's offense? You sell out for Jeremiah.
Which Texas did, which gets you burned by Travion Henderson.
Yeah.
But, like, I think that we might have more games this year of 8 receptions for 80 yards than he's had in the past because of the emphasis to try to stop him. So, and that doesn't mean he's not good or great. It just means that it's going to be really harder for him to navigate. And he'll still navigate that and have great games because he's really that good. But I don't know if, like, the expectation is he has to have 1,700 yards receiving to have a successful year this year.
So we have to talk about another Ohio State player in a second, but I want to talk about the number 2 guy on Pete's list, because this person, as a true freshman like Jeremiah Smith, came in complete freak of nature, changed his team dramatically, but also is losing a very productive guy at the same, very much like Jeremiah Smith, losing a very productive guy at the same position who probably helped him take a little pressure off. So we're talking about South Carolina edge Dylan Stewart. Came in as a true freshman, 6'5", 250, everything you want in an edge rusher. Had a great freshman season.
Yeah.
Now, everybody knows him. Everybody's worried about him, but no Kyle Kennard on the other side.
Yeah, I talked to Dylan Stewart in June, And the one thing about Dylan Stewart you learn very quickly is he's not one to talk a lot, right? But when you start to talk to him about like sacking people and celebrating tackles for loss, like it's like the kid comes out in him. I see Dylan Stewart taking another step forward. Now, obviously, in a similar vein of Jeremiah Smith, more teams are going to prep for trying to stop Dylan Stewart. I believe he was just short of Jadeveon Clowney's freshman record at South Carolina, which kind of paints the picture of how impactful he was last year. But I do think losing Kyle Kennard, they brought in a couple guys in the portal who would try to help him, but like trying to replicate what Kyle Kennard did to let Dylan Stewart get after the quarterback is going to be the storyline to watch when it comes to if Dylan Stewart can replicate what he did as a true freshman.
I look at that picture that we always use of him, and it's just like, that was not a person.
That's a football player.
Yeah. I think that picture
Most
alone.
football players don't look like that either. That's
yeah.
That's if you create a football player in a lab.
I've never looked at the Sports Illustrated body issue, but that guy should be in it, right?
Well, that was the ESPN the magazine. We had the swimsuit issue. SI. Yeah.
Oh yeah, sorry. ESPN the magazine.
If they still had the body issue, no, they don't have ESPN the magazine anymore. The body issue is the commercial they did when they first came out. They're making fun of the swimsuit issue, and they were like all nude, tastefully done. That's what the body issue was. It was all nude, tastefully done. So but it was fascinating to see like how different how the perfect body looks different for different sports. That's the perfect body to rush the quarterback. Like that's what you would make. He's long, but he's also big. Like Pete, I think you said he'd put on muscle. He's up to like 256 when you talk to him. Yeah. Like that's a scary dude because he moves really well.
Yeah, he moves really well. And the other thing about Dylan Stewart I learned about him when I talked to him that I found interesting, and I know every edge rusher tells you this, but he got so animated when we talked about when people hold him. Like he's like, I never would have done the gun celebration if they weren't holding me and the refs didn't call. I was like, okay, like yeah. I think Dylan Stewart is already pissed off, and he's one of those guys who's just
getting pre-held.
Yeah, he's already like pissed off about the holding calls that are going to come. He's the kind of guy who's like finding ways to get pissed off. Then you add that with what he did in the weight room. I was told he, ripped off like about 20 reps with 225 pounds on the bench. He's up to 256. I mean, he has everything he needs to be a top overall pick in a couple of years, and what he can do on the field this year. And we were just talking money with Jeremiah Smith. I feel like I got to bring it up. What South Carolina did and holding on to Dylan Stewart and Lenore Sellers is pretty remarkable.
Right, because we don't think of South Carolina in that vein.
Yep.
But they had to. If you want to have anywhere near the season you had last year, you have to keep both of them. Now, I do wonder, will teams do to Dylan Stewart what they did to Jadeveon Clowney his last year? Because I remember I went to their first game was against North Carolina that year. This was Clowney's junior season, so he's coming off the last game he played was that Outback Bowl with the hit on Vincent Smith that popped his helmet off. They ran away. They would line up, see what side Jadeveon Clowney was on, and if the play wasn't going away from Jadeveon Clowney, they'd flip it, and they would just run away from him over and over to make him sprint the length of the field before he had to actually rush the passer, and they gassed him. So Dylan Stewart, get ready to run the opposite direction because I bet a bunch of teams are going to do that.
Yeah, no, there's going to be a lot of that.